All right, so this week's deep dive. This week, we're really diving into something that's got everyone talking Pi Network
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one.
and a pretty wild rumor.
Yeah, the idea that, you could have a cryptocurrency project that might be worth billions of dollars before it's even really off the ground is
Before it's even launched,
yeah.
officially launched. It's
Yeah.
pretty intriguing. And we've gotten a ton of requests from listeners asking us to unpack it all. You've sent us articles, YouTube videos, screenshots. Everyone's trying to figure out what is really going on with Pi Network and this supposed, multi-billion-dollar valuation.
And that's what we're here to do.
Exactly. So for anyone who maybe hasn't been glued to the crypto news cycle nonstop for the past couple of years, let's just start with the basics. What is Pi Network and why is it getting so much buzz?
So Pi Network is it's basically trying to be a different type of cryptocurrency. Basically, they're trying to let people mine cryptocurrency on their phones.
Because I always thought that you needed like a massive, expensive, computer rig to mine cryptocurrency.
Yeah, so like the original cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, they do rely on these giant warehouses full of computers that just consume massive amounts of energy. But Pi Network is built on a different type of blockchain technology that claims to be much more energy efficient and accessible.
All right.
So they use something called, I always mess this up, the Stellar Consensus Protocol. And that's what allows you to, basically just download the app on your phone, verify your identity, and then just kind of check in once a day to kind of keep your mining session active. So it's not quite as intensive as those massive mining operations.
Interesting. So no need to set up a server farm in your basement.
Not at all. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and that's part of what makes them appealing because they're really trying to democratize this idea of cryptocurrency, make it as easy as checking your social media.
Right. They want to make it a social cryptocurrency. Right. I know one of the articles you sent over was talking about how they really encourage their users to invite their friends and kind of build out their networks that way. And they actually claim to have over 60 million users globally at this point. That's huge.
Yeah.
I think I saw in your notes that you were maybe a little skeptical of that number.
I mean, it's possible, right? Like, it's definitely possible to get that many downloads. But I think, the big question is, downloads versus active users. Like, how many people are actually, engaging with the app on a regular basis versus just, downloaded it, maybe forgot about it.
Right. It's like those apps that are like, download our app and get a free gift card.
Yeah.
You get the downloads, but are people actually using it?
Yeah, exactly. And, when you're talking about, like, the potential value of Pi, that distinction is pretty crucial.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's get into this rumor, this multi-billion-dollar
Which is big, yeah.
investment. Where did it even come from?
So, like a lot of things, it seems like it started with a screenshot.
Okay.
So there was a screenshot that kind of went viral that appeared to show Pi Network listed on this platform called Traxon, which is a platform investors use to research companies.
Okay.
And this screenshot, it showed Pi Network with a funding amount of like $15.1 billion.
Yeah, that's what everyone's been talking about.
Right. But so it's important to note that Traxon itself is a legitimate platform.
Okay.
However, when you actually go look up the listing for Pi Network, it lists their funding as undisclosed.
So where did the 15 billion come from?
That is the million-dollar question, or I guess the $15 billion question.
Right.
It's unclear. It's possible, someone could have just misinterpreted the data, or it could have just been a case of, straight up misinformation spreading online.
And of course, Pi Network themselves has been awfully quiet about the whole thing.
Right.
They haven't really said anything.
Not really, no. No confirmation, no denial, just silence.
Which obviously just leads to more speculation.
Yeah, I mean, some people think it means that they're about to drop some massive announcement, as soon as they launch on Mainnet. Others think, maybe this is a sign that there's nothing to it. Who knows?
It's like we're trying to solve this puzzle, but we've only got like half the pieces.
Right, exactly.
And they're all spread out all over the place.
But you know what? It might be a very valuable puzzle at the end of the day. Because if they really have, secured this massive amount of funding, it could mean that they're on track to be, a major player in this space.
Yeah.
But until we get some official word, it's all just speculation at this point.
And all this speculation, it's got a lot of people wondering what it could all mean for the price of Pi.
Yeah, especially once it's actually, tradable on exchanges.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which it isn't yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Big question mark. And especially for those people who have been mining Pi on their phones,
Yeah.
they want to know, are my efforts going to pay off?
Of course, yeah. Everyone wants to know if they're sitting on a gold mine or
Right.
a dud. Yeah.
That's exactly. And you actually brought up a good point in your notes about this. You mentioned that, one of the YouTube videos we watched argued that, with 60 million users, even if it's a small percentage of those that are actually actively using Pi, the demand could still push that price up significantly.
Yeah.
They were throwing out numbers like $55 to $70 by the end of 2024.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that a lot of these price predictions, they're banking on Pi Network really being able to transition from, just a mining app into a fully functioning ecosystem
Right.
that actually has real-world utility.
And what does that really mean, real-world utility, when we talk about cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so it's not enough to just, have people speculating on the price.
Right.
Like, can you actually use Pi to buy stuff? Are there other companies and developers that are building, applications and businesses that use Pi? Is there this kind of vibrant community? Those are the things that are really going to, determine its long-term value.
So it's not even just about how many people are using it. It's about what they can actually do.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of the skepticism comes in because, right now Pi Network is still, very much in development. They haven't even launched on what's called the Mainnet yet, which is kind of an essential step for cryptocurrencies to really reach their full potential.
You mentioned in your notes that Pi Network wants to build their own ecosystem. They're even talking about maybe having their own exchange. Could that be a game changer?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I think, by kind of trying to create their own self-contained system,
Yeah.
they're bypassing that need to get listed on something like Binance.
Right.
Which is,
Speaking of which,
Mhm.
that kind of reminds me of, we saw a lot of conflicting information about that in our research,
Oh, yeah.
where, some YouTubers were saying Pi is already listed on Binance. Some are saying absolutely not.
Right.
What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so I think this is a good example of why it's so important to be careful about what you see online, especially when it comes to crypto. Those claims are false.
Yep.
Pi Network is not listed on Binance.
Yeah.
And anyone who is telling you otherwise is probably trying to, take advantage of you in some way.
Gotcha. So if it's not on Binance yet, what has to happen for it to actually get listed there or on other, major exchanges?
Well, I mean, first, they have to actually launch on Mainnet. That's when it actually becomes a tradable cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And then, it has to demonstrate that it has, good security, that it's relatively stable. Exchanges don't want to list coins that are, going to be prone to being hacked or having huge price swings. And then they also have to build up a certain level of what's called liquidity, which basically means...
So there are enough buyers and sellers that...
Yeah, enough people trading it that you're not going to see wild price swings.
Okay.
Every time someone tries to, buy or sell.
Gotcha. So even if everything goes perfectly, it's probably going to be a while
It's going to be a while.
before we see it.
Yeah. And even then, there's no guarantees.
Of course.
The crypto landscape can change so quickly.
Absolutely.
What's popular today might be
Yeah.
old news tomorrow.
It all feels very uncertain,
Right.
which I guess that's part of the fun for some people, but
Sure.
maybe not for others.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because through this whole deep dive, we've had this excitement, but then also this uncertainty about Pi Network.
Yeah.
We're kind of standing on the edge of something that could be really big,
Yeah.
but we don't know if it's going to work out.
It's like we're watching a new financial system being born, but we have no idea
Right.
what direction it's going to go. Right. And you've done a good job of, pointing out the risks, like the, potential scams, the misinformation, the
Yeah.
price volatility. For somebody out there who's listening, who's like, this is really interesting, I want to learn more, but I also, I don't want to get caught up in something. What advice would you give them?
I think just, approach it with a healthy amount of skepticism.
Okay.
Don't just take someone's word for it on YouTube or, on any of these. Don't base any financial decisions on just one source. Do your own research, look into it, look at what Pi Network is actually saying. They have a whole white paper.
Right, because a lot of the stuff that we saw, especially on YouTube, felt very much like get rich quick.
Yeah. And that should always be a red flag. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
Focus on what Pi Network is actually trying to do, what their goals are, what their challenges are. Don't get caught up in the hype.
And it seems like a big part of what they're trying to do is build this community.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a huge part of whether or not Pi Network is going to be successful depends less on the technology and more on whether or not they can get enough people to actually use it. And they're really leaning into that whole invite your friends, verify your identity.
Right, right.
build the community aspect of it.
Okay, so last question for you before we wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot, but if there's one thing that you really want listeners to take away from all of this, what would it be?
I think like the main thing is just to, understand that Pi Network is a really interesting experiment
Right.
in cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to like break down the barriers, make crypto accessible, but whether or not they can actually pull it off and like, disrupt the big players and everything, time will tell, but it's
Okay.
going to be fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. It's definitely a story that is still being written. And for our listeners, if you found this deep dive interesting, keep digging. We just scratched the surface here. And as always, if you've got other deep dives you want us to do in the future, send them our way. Until then, stay curious.